We are now live. So welcome everybody. This is Troy Kilpatrick, the Executive Director at the Journey Museum and Learning Center. And thank you for signing in and joining us for our latest edition of Journey Discussions here tonight. It's cold outside, so it's a perfect night to sit in, just like we did when we were kids, sit or gather around the laptop and join a Zoom webinar and learn more about our history of the Black Hills in South Dakota, right? Everybody remembers doing that. Someday people will reminisce about these kind of programs as we make new history today, right? So tonight, you guys, we're joined by a pair of great contributors to the Journey Museum and Learning Center. We have Diana Sadoff from the Mount Rushmore Society and Maureen McGee Ballinger from Mount Rushmore itself. She's the Chief of Interpretation and Education there. And we set this program up because both of these ladies were so fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to see our video, A Monumental Journey, and we're going to make it available for you to be able to see that again real easily. If you haven't seen that, these ladies contributed so much great content. We wept when we had to cut down the amount of content that we had there. And I said, somehow we're going to have to make this work. So tonight, you're going to see some of those interviews in warmer days repurposed. And then they've given us the time to be able to answer some questions live here tonight with them. So you folks who are watching, as you watch a video or as it's going on, you can just send me the question as a moderator and I'll gather that. Another cool opportunity with Zoom is you don't have to wait till the program is over. You can just send your question the minute you think about it. You can blurt your question out and I'll write it. And then we're going to talk all things presidents, the presidents of Mount Rushmore, things that you might want to find out about, maybe some of what's upcoming this summer as we all look forward to things outdoors and in 2021 again. So a little bit about Journey Discussions. If you didn't get an opportunity to join us last Thursday, we had Dr. Shankar Kura from Monument Health. And we were talking about COVID-19, where are we at in the pandemic, where are we at in the vaccination process. Dr. Kura gave us some insights as to for our community, what's next for all of us. That video, that program is being repurposed and we'll have it available tomorrow. Find it on our website, on Facebook, probably even do an email, an e-blast, we call those. If you're not getting our emails, sign up for those at journeymuseum.org and you'll be able to get that. What's another cool bonus about tonight is we're going to turn tonight's program around and pair it with Monumental Journey. So it'll be available on Monday, President's Day. I mean, there's a reason why we're doing this tonight. I am wearing my Valentine's tie, and I warned the ladies that the reason I'm wearing the Valentine's tie is because they're both sweethearts for doing programming with us here tonight. So there, I got Valentine's Day in for Sunday. Guys, it's Sunday. Reminder for all the guys out there, it's Sunday. And Monday is President's Day, so we'll have all of these programs. Next Thursday, sign in for Journey Discussions, and we're going to talk about Perseverance, the new Mars rover. It's going to land on Mars on Thursday, February 18th. And we're going to have Tom Durkin, who is the Deputy Director for NASA here in the state of South Dakota. He's going to talk about the Mars mission. We're hoping we can actually have some live pictures and content from Perseverance itself from the surface of Mars. That's all breaking news, kind of a breaking museum program education story on Thursday. Perseverance, perfect name for 2020, don't you ladies think, is for the rover to be called Perseverance. The next Thursday after that, our program is going to be called Forgiving 2020. Dr. Chris Heacock is going to come and talk to us about forgiveness. And I think we've all had our moments in 2020 where we said, you know, I'm just done with all of this stuff. But how do we move forward? How do we build a positive way so that in 2021 we can kind of get going in the right directions? And so Chris, who is also our board chair, is volunteering her time. She's written a book on forgiveness and she's a real expert on this. And I do think we've all, whether we realize it or not, all of our lives have changed immensely. You know, we joked February a year ago at this time, how many of you knew what Zoom was? How many of you had ever been on a Zoom call? Would you have ever considered downloading an app and signing into an educational program back in February of 2020? Probably not. Now we all, we might spend, I think today Diana had 4 meetings. I think Diana had 3 meetings. We all know Zoom, and we appreciate all of you joining us tonight. What we're going to do here is, I think Alyssa, you're in the back room there. Let's do the video for our Mount Rushmore video. And then when we come back from the video, I'm going to give the bios on Diana and Maureen so that we can get that flowing. And in the meantime, folks, if you have a question while the video is playing, you can send that to me on the chat. And we're going to let Alyssa, our marketing manager, get us started with our program with the video. So thanks everybody for joining in, and here comes the video.
The Mount Rushmore story to me is one that is just, it came out as a wild dream of Doan Robinson, who was the state historian. And he thought, wouldn't it be great if we could create a sculpture of American heroes, and that would bring people to the Black Hills.
And he loved his state. He wanted everyone else to come in and love it. He's like, get them into the Black Hills.
And so the plan was to create something that was so big, so awesome, that people would have to come to South Dakota and see it. And his chosen venue was giant artwork on the mountain. So after convincing some other folks that this might be a great idea, and I do emphasize might be a great idea because it was pretty crazy back at that time too. Many people did not think it was feasible, but in that day and age, they went ahead anyway because there was enough interest and dream and drive and seeing how far they could take this vision.
He hires the artist Gutzon Borglum. And why Borglum? Well, Gutzon Borglum was already a well-known artist. Borglum's parents were immigrants. Now, he grew up born in Idaho and grew up in Nebraska. He understood the immigrant idea and the American idea. And so he wanted America to think big with art.
So Gutzon Borglum was always described to me as being larger than life in his personality as well as in his work. And if you think about it, you don't take on a big audacious dream like sculpting a granite mountain in the Black Hills without having a healthy dose of confidence. And so they convinced him to come to South Dakota and to look at the area where Doan Robinson and some of the others thought that it would be a good site. And that first site that was chosen was down in Custer State Park. Well, Borglum did not like the site.
There are giant spires of granite rock in Custer State Park. They're standing like pinnacles. He thought, we'll carve those into statues. We'll carve them in the round. And we'll do people like Fremont and Chief Red Cloud and Lewis and Clark. And people will come and they'll see that and they'll enjoy the state of South Dakota. So it's a pretty cool idea to bring people into his favorite place.
He didn't like the rock formation. He didn't think it had the southern exposure that he wanted for the sculpture to be lit in a way naturally that he thought would enhance it. And Borglum also did not like the idea of the American heroes.
Who's going to know who these people are 100 years from now, 200 years from now? Borglum told Robinson, hey, you're not thinking big enough. You need to go presidential. And when Borglum saw the big rock here, he said, that's it, a big pellet of granite for me to use.
And so that collaboration led to choosing the site known as Mount Rushmore, and of the actual subject matter becoming the presidents, and not necessarily the presidents that you see right now.
So Borglum comes up with the idea of having the presidents up there. Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. It was pretty easy to figure out why 3 of them were chosen. George Washington, the first president. But more importantly than that, the man who gave up power. He could have stayed. People loved him. But he said, no, that's not the way our new government is written. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration, pretty amazing document. But why Borglum chose him? He doubled the size of the country with the Louisiana Purchase. And Abraham Lincoln, yeah, again, pretty easy to figure out. The president who, when the country was coming apart at the seams, pulled it together. The Emancipation Proclamation freeing thousands and thousands of people. But what about Theodore Roosevelt? Now, Roosevelt was pretty controversial. The other three, everybody said okay, but not Roosevelt. So a lot of people alive had remembered Roosevelt. Some loved him, some did not. So he was the most controversial figure. But Borglum said, nope, he's going up there because that is the president that stood for the common man. And that's the president that had us into international politics with the Panama Canal. So Robinson comes up with this brilliant idea. Borglum comes up with a way to implement it.
And the vision was launched, and the Mount Rushmore Society was launched to help create support for this project and also to create funding for the project. So pretty big dreams back in the 1927 to 1930 era that has become what we all love and know today. So the Mount Rushmore Society, as I said, was created in 1930 as we pretty much know it today. And its role then was to inspire school children and to inspire individuals to contribute to the project. And so our roots are in philanthropy. And to this day, we continue that principle, if you will. So whatever was needed at the time is kind of what the Mount Rushmore Society became. And so we were the first park concessionaire, running a little gift shop, selling ice cream and souvenirs down in what we know now as a sculpture studio. And then over the years, one of our main funding sources were those binoculars that you would drop. At that time, it would be you drop a nickel in and then you get to see the sculpture up close. The things that we provide, people assume are done by their federally appropriated budgets, and that's not true. So for example, the rangers that our visitors encounter that are doing the tours, or the interns that are telling stories or doing the evening lighting programs, are all funded because of our donors and of the people that support the Mount Rushmore Society. So the Avenue of Flags is something that the Mount Rushmore Society, we provide the flags every year for that. All of the Junior Ranger programs and badges are provided so that that program remains free for anybody that attends at Mount Rushmore. Something that I am very proud of. We do some big projects, but it's the everyday things that I really take great joy in. So one of the big projects we're working on right now, we're going to be replacing the films that are shown at Mount Rushmore. And so technology has changed, times have changed. The story of Mount Rushmore hasn't changed, but perhaps how we tell that story will change. You know, we're in an era too where we need to be thinking in a much more inclusive way about how things were created or chosen, or how different people view the history of the memorial. And so we're very excited to be bringing a more contemporary treatment to that inspirational program. Our goal is that we provide some inspiration and touch them emotionally in some way maybe that they didn't expect to feel.
Oh, Mount Rushmore is an incredible work of art, a giant work of art, a work of art that is 90% done with dynamite. Now, I don't always think of dynamite as an artist's brush, but that's certainly what Borglum thought. So when people come here to Mount Rushmore, some of them are coming because they are artists, they are sculptors, they are engineers, and they want to come and see this incredible feat that this man managed to pull off.
There was never any doubt about his artistic ability or that he was indeed the keeper of the vision. And so, and sometimes those creative minds are a little difficult as managers, but I think the result speaks for itself. And for him to create the system that he did, the pointing system for measurements, etc., was also something that he innovated. And so I think about the man as an artist, as an engineer, and as a visionary.
We have artists come to the park, set up their easel, bring their oils, bring their watercolors, and create their own art here, inspired by Borglum's work. And I think Borglum would be thrilled to know that he not only got his philosophy across, but he brought his love of art And that is what continues into the future for many of our visitors. That love of art, creation, and sharing. Roughly 10% of our visitation every year is international. They don't always know who those people are, but they know what they represent, what it means to them. What does democracy mean? What does freedom mean? And it's not at all uncommon to see a visitor from another land stand there and discuss with someone, often an American, what those ideas mean to them. Usually once a year, generally on or around Flag Day, June, the Office of Immigration and our local judge, Judge Viken, come to Mount Rushmore to do a naturalization ceremony. Those naturalization ceremonies are some of the most special days in the park. We generally have about 200 people that are coming to Mount Rushmore to be sworn in as U.S. citizens. And some of these people, they've been waiting years and years to become U.S. citizens, and they wait that extra bit of time longer to make sure that their swearing in is at Mount Rushmore. I enjoy every day seeing the visitor who's saved their entire life to spend 2 hours here at Mount Rushmore. It's more than just a bucket list. It's a place that changes people. 20 years from now, Mount Rushmore should look exactly like it looks today. As a sculpture. That was one man's vision. You don't change that vision. The rock around it, they've carved all carvable rocks, so you couldn't change the vision. But that particular rock, that's Harney granite. That erodes at the rate of about an inch every 10,000 years. Borglum kind of jokingly said, well, in 30,000 years, it'll be perfect. That is an artist with a vision.
For me, when I look at the sculpture, the pieces that were touched by man are very finely done, and the artwork itself is of great value. For me, I think what really translates into today are the unfinished parts of the sculpture, where it kind of fades into the unfinished. And I think to me that's the American story. It's still being written, and I find that that is of great interest to me, are the areas that are yet to be defined. Somehow, some way, the journey for the Mount Rushmore Society and Mount Rushmore National Memorial will continue.
Somehow, some way, Mount Rushmore National Memorial will continue, the ideals will continue, and democracy will continue.
Well, the only thing that's bad about Zoom is, see, right there, we should have had a huge round of applause. If Alyssa could have piped in some applause there for you ladies, that would have been appropriate. So Diana, you're going to be up first, so just so you're prepared. A little bit about Miss Diana Nielsen Sadoff. She grew up in Beersford, South Dakota. That makes her a watchdog.
You got
right?
it. Yeah, you got
mascot. Graduated from the University of South Dakota. It's all about the U and the Coyotes. And she also is a graduate from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for Nonprofit Management. And by golly, not only did she graduate from a nonprofit management thing, but she's been doing it for 25 years plus, nonprofit management, public relations, and fundraising. And she is the CEO for the Mount Rushmore Society. Diana, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate your support of the journey and all of the work you do. It never gets old for me to see those pictures, those monuments. And, we're doing this program Thursday night ahead of President's Day because it is about people. So in your role as the CEO and thinking of those presidents up there that have been honored, talk about those connections between the people a little bit, Diana, and I'll let you just roll with that.
Well, thank you for having me here tonight. And I was kind of enthralled watching the video, just thinking Maureen and I share such a passion for the memorial. And I just think it's interesting, we tell the story slightly differently, but we have such love for what we do. and for the visitors that come to see the sculpture and for what it represents. So this is a labor of love. And so thank you for inviting us here tonight, or inviting me here tonight. And yeah, I'm a South Dakota girl. And so what bigger dream is there than to get to work for an organization that supports Mount Rushmore? I mean, it is our business card. It is our calling card. And so I started here in 1999, and by golly, I'm still here. So that's because the work isn't finished. And we have a lot of things that we are collaborating on. But the connection with Mount Rushmore and the people is that one of my favorite things to do is to go to the memorial and just sit on a bench and just listen. And the stories that you hear, or the comments that you hear are just fascinating. And, I thought it would be bigger, or I thought it would be smaller, or, all kinds of things. But my favorite comments are the people that actually go up in awe and say nothing at all. They're just struck by it. And so as an artist, I think Borglum did a beautiful job of bringing emotion into his artwork. And so to me, that's the connection. People have saved up, as Maureen said, for years. It's a bucket list item. But to actually be there and to be there in the moment, that's what rejuvenates me on a day-to-day basis.
Well, so Maureen, thank you, Diana. Maureen, you kind of got an idea of what the question's going to be, but I get to introduce you next. So again, thank you, Maureen, and for joining us here tonight too. And a little bit about Maureen, you guys. I mean, her undergrad degree in political science from Southern Illinois University. That's the Salukis. You got to get that in there, right? Okay. And then she got a master's of science in resource interpretation from Stephen F. Austin State University. That wasn't Austin P. I got that wrong. So I don't Stephen F. Austin. What is their nickname? Is that the Longhorns? I'm guessing, and I'm wrong. She began as a volunteer at Yellowstone National Park, a little national park you might have heard of, right? And continued on working at the Gateway Arch National Park in St. Louis, the National Historic Park in Philadelphia, the Everglades National Park in South Florida, Mount Rainier National Park in Western Washington, Knife River Indian Villages National Historic Site in North Dakota, and then she settled into Mount Rushmore, and we're so blessed to have her. So, Maureen, thank you for all of your support. You've worked with us collaboratively through the years. We've celebrated some anniversaries and done education programs, and you've been a willing contributor, and I know you have so much passion from all the national parks, specifically Mount Rushmore, because it's where you're at today. But talk about people and those presidents. Diana got the first shot at it, and you got a chance to listen to her on that. Don't worry, Diana, I'm going to flip the script on you guys here later as we go. Plus, I got a really hard chat question. So again, folks, you can send me those chats. I'm writing those down while we're playing off of our little script here. And we've got money on when we go off into the weeds tonight, but so far we're right on track. Maureen, let's talk people and presidents.
Well, thank you, Troy. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you very much to Diana. The Mount Rushmore Society does just amazing things for us at Mount Rushmore National Memorial. They are definitely part of the people. But Diana touched on it, the people that come to the park, sometimes that is a once-in-a-lifetime event for them. Other times, they might have been there 5, 6, 7, 8 times. But as I was watching the replay of our discussion that we had earlier in the year, I gotta say, it brought tears to my eyes every time I think about the naturalization ceremonies, and I think about the people that come to Mount Rushmore. They sometimes come thinking, oh, I'm going to get a picture of kind of a cool thing. I've heard about it. It's on lots of commercials. I'm going to have a photograph. And they get there and sometimes that is just an unlocking for them. We just got an email from a family, just got the email yesterday. They had come with their 3-year-old son in November of 2020. And they talked to their 3-year-old just a little bit about what is Mount Rushmore before they got there. And they got there, and this young man just connected with Roosevelt. He calls him Mustache Man. And he got so excited about Theodore Roosevelt that when they went home, his parents read him books about Roosevelt and talked about Roosevelt. And then they brought him back again so he could see. And this time, this 3-year-old boy had created a Theodore Roosevelt costume and came to Mount Rushmore dressed as Roosevelt. 3 years old. And this sculpture had an impression on him. His parents said, he said hello to each president and he said goodbye to each one as he left. You never know how this sculpture is going to impact someone, even 3 years old. Diana mentioned the Junior Ranger program, and Mount Rushmore Society supports that program. We've had over 28,000 Junior Rangers just last year. And that is the children and the parents working together, learning about the sculpture. I have to agree with Diana. It's pretty amazing to just go and sit and listen. Listen to the conversations, listen to how people are impacted by the site, whether they think it's big or small, what it means to them. And then to hear them start to interact with other visitors. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you. All right, so I've got a great question. And for those out there sending me questions, I'm not necessarily going to take them in order. I just thought this one tied in perfectly into the conversation of where we're at. We're talking about people. And this question, and I'm not sure which one of you might want to try to venture into this one, but the question is, were local merchants and utilities critical to the creation of Mount Rushmore? Or did Borglum and his crew deal directly with big companies like DuPont? Did Black Hills Power and Light provide electrical power, thus an early corporate player? The way Black Hills Power and Light was tightly woven into daily operations at Homestake Mine. So, I mean, we're talking about the local merchants and the buildup of the memorial itself. Well, I'll turn it over to both of you to fight over who gets that one.
Well, I'd be happy to jump in because it was kind of piecemeal. Borglum starts with this idea, and he is convincing Doan Robinson that this could all be done by donations. And they figure out pretty quickly they're going to need some more support than that. But they're not talking about corporate support or corporate connections. And as far as utilities are concerned, well, actually, the ladies who were cleaning, who were doing their laundry in Keystone, had an impact on what was going on. You had to make sure you weren't all using the utility at the same time. So it was more of a local, hey, we didn't know that was going to change what we're doing.
So, Diana, anything you want to add to that, or did Maureen kind of grab that? Piecemeal is what I gathered from that.
Well, piecemeal could describe a lot, including all of last year. So, you kind of get that, I don't think there was a full-blown strategic plan, as to how and what and where. And so I love the history of the, wasn't it wash day had to be determined so that the electricity was available for, when they needed it at the mountain. So I've heard bits and pieces of it, but there's so much color, back there as to the early days.
Awesome. Well, hey, and I want to thank one of our viewers out there for sending in Stephen F. Austin University is the Lumberjacks. We got that correction out there. They're not Longhorns. It's Texas Longhorns. I choked. Didn't know it. Lumberjacks. All right. So on the lines of coordinating things, I have a question in the queue here. One of our viewers was wondering if he was correct that Borglum had mandated that admissions would never be charged. And has that ever been, I suppose A, was that true, but B, has that ever been reconsidered? And what are the implications, pro and con? And I'm sure we can talk, that's probably a Diana question, but I'll kick it out there to you.
Well, actually, I'm gonna toss it to Maureen because the core mission of the Park Service, is her bailiwick here, and there've been some necessity over the years to get creative and how to fund some projects. But as far as admission, Maureen, you want to take that one?
Sure. Borglum did want this to be free. He wanted everyone to be able to see it, but it's actually in our congressional enabling legislation. Our enabling legislation states we cannot charge an entrance fee to come into the park. So you would have to have a congressional mandate. A law would have to be created for us to be allowed to charge an entrance fee. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think we will stay true to what Borglum wanted.
Okay, and so and I think and Diana, maybe to clarify the parking ramp and the relationships there, because that's not really an admission into Mount Rushmore. So I'll cue that to you, Diana.
Sure. The parking ramp, the fee, it was a service fee, a fee paid for the parking as a concession. The Mount Rushmore Society was the proud operators of that facility for about 20 years. At the request of the Park Service back in the mid-90s, the Mount Rushmore Society took out a private debt of about $17 million to construct the parking ramp, and the fees were used to reduce the debt and to pay for maintenance on the structure. And so it is a fee for service. It's not an entrance fee, but I know that gets confusing to folks as they're driving up to see the sculpture.
Thank you, ladies. And so this is a great question. And you probably hear it all the time up there, but did state and local boosters of Mount Rushmore embrace the idea of the Hall of Records? Is that something as a wild idea that's not worth the time? I mean, what everybody loves to talk about the Hall of Records. So this is your opportunity to, we'll open the door on that conversation.
You mean the Hall of Records where all the gold is buried? That one?
Is there? This is being recorded, Diana, just so you know.
Well, I haven't found it yet. In the 90s, when the renovations were being done, there was a commitment to honor the Borglum family's wishes of completing a record to be placed in the Hall of Records to honor Borglum's wishes. But Maureen, do you want to talk about, the state or national or any other pieces of that story?
There really isn't a big state or national connection with the Hall of Records. It was more of a Borglum idea. And he wanted to bring in the significant records, the United States, things like the Declaration and the Emancipation Proclamation. And you tell people that today and they're, well, why would you do that? South Dakota, it should be in Washington, D.C. But if you think about it, we're talking 1927 to 1941 carving era. Put it in South Dakota. It's going to be very well protected, geologically very sound. It would be a great spot to have those records, but a pretty expensive venture, and that's why it didn't happen. But if you do want to learn more about it, the Mount Rushmore Society has produced a book called The Hall of Records, and you can see pictures of the hall, and it talks about the proposal, and you can find out how they honored Borglum family wishes.
Nice. Well, kind of on the heels of that, we had a question come across that said, because of the large amounts of federal money that came along to pay the bills during the carving of the monument, in addition to South Dakota congressmen and senators of the day, did the project have significant congressional champions from far away? And I would suppose then the follow-up is who were those champions that may have been voices on behalf of Mount Rushmore?
Actually, Borglum really pushed President Coolidge. And the president, in addition to the South Dakota representative, Senator Norbeck, and Representative William Williamson, the support really was coming from the state. And it was tough. Borglum repeatedly had to go to Congress and repeatedly go to the president asking for money. This was not an easy project as far as finance from the federal government.
So yeah, we all forget, well, maybe we don't forget, but Calvin Coolidge was here in the Black Hills, and down in Custer State Park, you've got all of that, the old Central High School. So again, we're so lucky to have such great history around this area. But I thought that was a kind of an appropriately framed question at the time when we were talking about funding there. I have a question from in the queue here, and this is in regards to our Native American community members and the idea that perhaps some of them do not look favorably upon Mount Rushmore. Wondering about at the time what kind of dialogue there might have been promoting the carving between Borglum and Native Americans, and perhaps before and then maybe after. And you might even touch on some of the conversations of the day. You can go into the past conversations and where do we stand today. And I think that's a pretty broad brush to paint with there.
Well, Borglum did have a lot of connection with the tribes, particularly the people in Pine Ridge, did a lot of support, went to Congress asking for money, for food, and even for blankets. He found out at Fort Meade there were all these extra blankets, supplies left over and just stored. They all needed to go to the reservation, and he wrote the War Department. But as far as consultation with a tribe, we don't have any documentation that Borglum asked tribal members about carving that big monolith of granite. We do know that there was objections to it. The Black Hills are sacred lands to many different tribes. And there were people like Cora Johnson, conservationist, that's what we would call her today, or someone who's promoting the ecology of the area, who objected to it. But really, it's more in today that we are trying to connect with the tribes, trying to find out what is their voice and how do we bring their voice out. Diana mentioned that they're fundraising for movie campaigns. What we hope to do with these movies, at least in part, is to bring that voice forward, to get those different ideas out, to consult with the tribes and understand what does that sacredness mean in the Black Hills.
Diana, do you want to add a little bit to how you're working on the inclusivity piece of all of that conversation there too?
Yeah, we are just trying to be much broader and more inclusive and more reflective, as we work through support and programs and how we help, in telling a story. Like I said, we have an opportunity with these two large interpretive projects coming up to really do some reflection and some consultation. And I look forward to that. I mean, people have a different expectation today, that it is not going to be a single voice, that it will be multiple voices and all stories will be told. And so we're very committed to doing that.
The Mount Rushmore Society has also supported that inclusion by supporting us when we bring in Native American hoop dancers, Native American storytellers, support for creating the youth exploration area where we have our Lakota, Nakota, Dakota village that's open in the summertime. So they've really helped us promote that inclusion right now.
Thank you, ladies. And Maureen, I think you brought it up, and there was even a question in the queue as far as finding more content about the mountain itself prior to the carving, if there's more photo history that we could guide people to? Is there anything that you ladies could direct our viewers to?
If you go on the park website for Mount Rushmore National Memorial, there is a section about education. And some people think, oh, that's only for the school kids. No, that's for everybody. Click on the education section. And there was a nonprofit group that came in called SciArc, and they were here in 2010. And they scanned the sculpture. And that scanning material is linked on our park website. And as a matter of fact, just today, it went live on the SciArc website that we are linked to, a whole series of how is the sculpture protected. So if you click through, you can see the Deputy Chief of Interpretation, Blaine Quartermeyer, talking about preservation of the sculpture. And you can see that scan. It's pretty cool.
And that's breaking news today, right,
That's
Maureen?
today. That's today.
Cue that up, and there we go. All right. Hey, so, early on, ladies, we were going to talk about the Presidents on the Mountain and President's Day. So here, after some real rapid fire questions, I'm going to put you on the spot. We're thinking about President's Day, and we're looking up at the mountain, and, what would you like to share? I'm not going to make you pick a favorite president. That's just not fair. Thank you, Teddy. No, and they're all great leaders. But what would you guys like to share? I mean, we talked about that as being probably the first thing we were going to talk about. So now, after 40 minutes, I'm going to bring that into the game here. So, Maureen, you can start this time.
The presidents were chosen by Borglum because of who they were. Washington, the first president, and Jefferson, the Louisiana Purchase, Lincoln with the Civil War, Roosevelt, the common man. But he chose them for more than that. He chose them for what they represent. And that's kind of one of the things that we celebrate with President's Day. We're focusing on Washington and Lincoln and what they did. We have to think for a moment. I mean, we just went through an election. We know what that takes and what the ramifications are. Here you had George Washington, first president. People loved him. He could have just stayed. He could have basically become a king or even an emperor. They loved him so much. And he stepped out of the picture. The courage, the fortitude, and the commitment to say, my time is up. It's pretty incredible. And Jefferson, who is looking at the country and thinking, we need to go beyond, broader. Now, we all know there were other people here. We know that the lands were settled by many, many, many different tribes. But Jefferson wanted to continue into the unknown. For him, for the Eastern people, the coastal, it was unknown. That core of discovery, that's an amazing journey. And Lincoln, a self-taught lawyer? You couldn't do that today. Taught himself. And a person who was able to keep an entire country from permanently splitting apart. Gave his life for that. Roosevelt, what a bigger than life president. He was pretty amazing. This big bully pulpit and talking about all of his great things in the Panama Canal and bully. But what people don't always know is his background. A man who lost his wife. She died in childbirth. His mother died the exact same day. You lose your mother and your wife and you have an infant all in one day. In his diary, Theodore Roosevelt just put a big X on that day. That drove him into the Dakotas to heal. The Dakotas are what Roosevelt credits for keeping him going and healing. We have some pretty impressive connections with those presidents, not just the carving.
Maureen, that was awesome. Diana, you have the enviable impossible task of following Maureen up on that. And, I'll kick it to you.
Well, thank you very much. And so, Maureen, that was inspiring. So I'm going to do a pivot. I find that our times of coming through another election, and that there is a rawness in the country. But what I find about Mount Rushmore and what it represents is it is absolutely still germane, and that it is steadfast. And I will stick to my my thoughts, if you will, that it is the unfinished areas to me that are still fascinating. And I believe that's where we are at today as a country. So I invite people to look at the sculpture and look at it through the eyes of, what it stands for, and the ideals that are evergreen, that are everlasting, and that we find ways to ground ourselves again in that. I find the sculpture to be both evocative and maybe provocative at this time, as people are testing, the stories and what does leadership really mean. And so again, I find it to be just evergreen in its purpose and in its message. And I just challenge people to look at what leadership means to them, and to thank those leaders around us for having the courage, every day to stand up and try and make a difference. And then one final thought on that is, I believe we should mail out a Constitution, a Declaration of Independence, and a Bill of Rights to every citizen in the United States, because clearly they're cherry picking the parts that they want.
Well, there's all kinds of learning opportunities that you just added there, Diana. And you're right, though. There's a lot of selective choosing, perhaps, that goes on. And I appreciate both of your answers on that. It's been a tremendously challenging past year, and we've seen changes in leadership in our country, and these are tough jobs to be a president, and to celebrate that, and to continue to support our country the way it is. So I've got kind of a grouping of questions that they sort of resemble each other in terms of status of construction, what other unfinished plans might there be. And so rather than me kind of duplicating those questions, I'll kind of just form it that way. If you guys could provide some form of an update, how's everything going to look this summer in 2021, and what might be some unfinished business or more visions that might be coming forward beyond 2021. And at the same time, I've got a viewer saying they feel very romantic about the good old days when it was cozier at the same time. And so, how you're contending with your continued growth and the amount of visitation that happens there, I'm sure is always a balancing act. And so I guess a status update on 2021, what else might be in the mix, and see if you can deal with fond memories at the same time.
Well, we are still undergoing construction. For the last couple of years, we have been in a major deferred maintenance project. The visitor center leaked, and we needed the heating and air conditioning system redone. That was all done last year, carpeting done last year, worked on the Grandview Terrace. And the Grandview Terrace is the roof of the visitor center. So when the visitor center leaks, you have to work on the Grandview Terrace. And the Avenue of Flags had some modifications. We still have the flags. We just kind of moved them out a little bit. So we have a bigger walkway. And we do certainly have people who say, gosh, I miss the way it used to look, whether it was the way the flags used to look or whether it was the old visitor center. And well, we did have to accommodate more people. We have more and more people visiting all the time. Our record visitation right now is 3.3 million visitors in a year. most of whom are visiting between May and the end of September. And I'll tell you, in January of this year, January 2021, in the midst of a pandemic, we set a record for January visitation, 38,000 people in January. They're still coming, and they will continue to come. So while we might miss some of the old style, I certainly want the space to welcome all the newcomers.
Diana, what would you like to add to that?
Well, first of all, if you haven't been to see the revised Avenue of Flags, I invite you to do so. It is really spectacular, the work that the Park Service did on widening that to accommodate and to add benches. It is just a beautiful feel to it. So don't prejudge, come and see. We're all looking forward to the day when all of the construction barricades and things are down, but visitors are still coming. And national parks and campgrounds and public lands had a huge year last year as people were seeking a place to social distance and get out of the house, get away from their family, I guess. I guess they brought their families with them, but they were getting out of the house. So, the parks, national parks, et cetera, are going to have another big year, I do believe. But and I understand the nostalgia for the old Mission 66 architecture is usually what people are talking about that they long for. But I'd like to remind people that there are areas of the park that aren't as congested. The Presidential Trail is a wonderful exercise. It's a wonderful place to walk, and it's very accessible. And a few years ago, we rehabilitated a trail to the south of the memorial, it's still part of the memorial grounds, called the Blackberry Trail. So if you want a little more of a natural adventure, there's picnic tables over there too. You might have to fight the horse people for them. But anyway, there are still some really wonderful ways to experience the park that are away from the main campus, if you will. And I just encourage people to come back again and again and to make new memories and find their special places.
Yeah, I think that, you get up there and wander around and take in all the different places. What I've enjoyed personally is to go to Mount Rushmore, not when it's always so picturesque, but go when there's snow or rain and see it in different, because everybody's at that postcard picture, but it's kind of cool to be there when it's different. And I've appreciated that. We had a question that came in while we were talking about, what's changing. And, you've been at Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore's been there for a sizable amount of time. And so we have someone asking for if there's some kind of scope as far as a comparison between the park and its campus and Keystone. How different is this from maybe when the carvings began? How much infrastructure has come up? That's a tough question because things evolve in front of us, but it's just kind of asking for some measure of growth, I guess, from sort of the initial phase of that. Maybe visitor numbers can do that to a degree, but I think we're talking the facility infrastructures too. Anyone want to try that one?
Well, the acreage of the park is basically the same as it always has been. There really hasn't been an increase in acreage. A couple of minor boundary adjustments, but very minor. There certainly has been some facility increases, construction of a visitor center, the Mission 66 kind of style visitor center, and then the redevelopment with the new visitor center and the Avenue of Flags. The Sculptor Studio, which is a great place to visit, that's one of our two historic structures. That was built by Borglum as his studio. So really, we haven't had that much infrastructure put in the entire time from the carving era on.
So I would add that in the summertime, that people don't always understand that when we have 25,000 people at Mount Rushmore, that campus, the facilities and themselves, we're in the top 20 of populations in the state of South Dakota. I mean, Mount Rushmore itself becomes a city. That kind of utilities and infrastructure, is there to support it. But the geography has not expanded. But I mean, just think about that: 25,000 people at one location in South Dakota. It's huge.
That's
And it's a changing population.
good point, Diana. The park is an independent entity. It does not rely on the surrounding community for its infrastructure. We do have full wastewater treatments, and that is meant to be taken care of and sort of out of the way, so people.
So, I know you ladies kind of addressed this a little bit, but still coming up in the queue is just real specifically the questions of, will there be removal of barricades and construction in the summer of 2021?
Yes, the goal is that all the construction will be done for the summer of 2021.
And I think that's what everybody was driving for as they kept hitting me back here. We're getting close to wrapping up, but I can still handle a question or two. But I've got one question here that is asking for, is there somewhere where there's a list of movies or materials in the bookstore, all of the things that maybe has used Mount Rushmore or been a part of that? I mean, Mount Rushmore's been a part of so many different things. Is there some form of a master list or guide that someone could look at as a resource, I guess?
I don't know about a master resource, but that's a tee up for the Mount Rushmore Society website, where we do have items and films for purchase, and our downtown location as well.
I did save that towards the end. Did you notice that?
Thank you.
So, ladies, wow, it's been a fast 55 minutes. I'll just let you, is there anything else that you would like to add on your own? I think, and for those of you out there that sent me questions and I morphed it a little bit because there's other questions similar to it, I hope you're okay with that. It's been a great discussion tonight, but Diana, is there anything else you'd like to share as we start to wrap up here tonight?
We are super excited about the future, and as always, this time of year we're in full planning mode, for 2021 and beyond. We're excited about being able to provide new interpretive opportunities, the films, and to complete the construction. So, as always, we want you as ambassadors to South Dakota, to invite your friends and family to come back, see what's new, see what's old. And let's just keep the pride and the message going. Sorry, I get a little emotional there, but we love what we do and we want to share it.
It's okay to be emotional. That's wonderful. I like see what's new and see what's old. I mean, we had that conversation, right? There's a lot of the original stuff that's up there. Maureen, anything that you'd like to wrap up as a comment? Do you have anything special happening on Monday up there? Are we going to be outside in 20 below weather doing education experiences?
We generally don't set programs for President's Day because South Dakota weather can be a little bit unpredictable in the wintertime. But every day we have interpretive programs. Any day of the week, people can come and visit Mount Rushmore and join an interpretive program or view the park movie or just come out and sit on the benches and enjoy the sculpture. And I highly recommend, if we are putting together a naturalization program this year, I hope we will have a naturalization ceremony. If you hear about it, come and see it. There is nothing like witnessing people becoming U.S. citizens and why they do it. It's one of the most moving things you'll ever do. Please come visit Mount Rushmore. And if it's a place that you love, come and volunteer. Give me a phone call. I would love to have some people come volunteer at Rushmore and share their spirit as well.
Maureen and Diana, thank you. And for all of you who've joined us here tonight, thank you. And, one of the things, journey discussions are available. We would normally do educational programming, maybe charge a small admission fee. These are no charge. We would appreciate donations. The Mount Rushmore Society appreciates donations. We all like volunteers too. I'm going to put a plug in for all of that. All of us are doing our best to continue to celebrate South Dakota, the Black Hills, and the United States history here. And we thank you guys for signing in tonight and being a part of this program. So on behalf of the Journey Museum and Learning Center, as we always say here, somehow, some way, the journey will continue. And thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.